Portraiture lesson 4 is about gesture, and what I mean by that is the body position, how the sitter is expressing themselves and how their body is moving. It's key when you're working out the composition of a portrait to think, how am I going to place this person? How is their body going to be positioned to make it the most interesting portrait? If you just have them sitting looking straight at you, it's not always the most interesting way of depicting that character. Once you've been doing life drawing, you can use cartoon like we did before with facial expressions and creating characters with the face. You can do that with the whole body as well. Again, my favourite cartoonist is Quentin Blake, and he's a good person to use because his illustrations often use fairly accurate body proportions. Even if you start by copying some of his work and capturing those gestures and those characters, it's a good exercise. You could then maybe go back to some of your life drawings or look at some of the people in your house or look at photographs and see if you can capture those shapes and those characters using the cartoon style. With cartoon, you don't want to be doing loads and loads of lines. You just want to go with whatever you've drawn. Trying to just draw one line. They may not all work and they may not all be brilliant. Don't worry too much. Try not to rub out though. I don't think there's too much point rubbing out your pictures. If you're not happy with one you've done, try drawing another one. I'm just thinking of very quick things that you could do, and I'm trying to look at the Quentin Blake drawings as I do it. Another thing that you can do is to use a black pen, either once you've actually created your characters, or you can go straight in with a black pen. I wouldn't use it too heavily, just putting in a few lines. Once you've done it, you can then get some water. I'm using a bit thicker paper to do this. You can then use that water to try and create a tonal variation. It just adds a little bit more depth to your drawings. You can also add a bit of watercolour. Just try not to add huge amounts, otherwise it does kind of just go all black. It can end up being a bit too much and the whole picture goes black. Something to experiment with. Sometimes it works and goes well, other times it will all just go into a big blur. It takes a little bit of practice. You can always have some kitchen towel handy to suck up the water if it gets a bit too much. It's a way of adding to your pictures. The nice thing about black felt tips is that they have a lot of different colours in them to create the black, so they have all of the primaries in them usually, so you can get reds and blues and yellows come out when you put water on it. Just remember that if your picture is wet, don't add the black felt tip back onto the water, as it sucks all the ink out of your felt tips and it will destroy them in the end. You could also try using watercolour. These pencils are watercolour pencils, so you can add water and spread them like we did with the black pen. When you're doing this, you don't want to put the water into every part of it. You want to leave some areas that are just free of water, then you'll have more of a tonal range. But I would suggest being quick, and don't forget that if you get two colours next to each other, they will run into each other. And the difference with using these in felt tip is that you could potentially go over if you wanted to add back in and pad out if you need to. Hopefully when you're done, you'll have looked at both the personality and expression and mood, gesture and posture, body proportions, and all those things that create a person when you are drawing them. Then we could move on to doing your final portrait.